Hello and welcome to St Mary's Vicarage here in Ellesmere. I'm Pat and I'm the vicar here. And if you've been following the posts on our Facebook page this Holy Week, or if you've been following on YouTube, you'll recognise a change of scene. I've moved from the church here into the vicarage to my living room. And that's quite deliberate, because I wanted to take a pause as we reach halfway through Holy Week, and before tomorrow on Maundy Thursday we approach the climax of the week. And that is partly to get our breath, because Holy Week can be very demanding. It can be quite exhausting, and it's good to pause. But it's more than that. What I wanted to do was to refocus on the person that the story of Holy Week is all about, on Jesus. And most particularly, to ask the question, who is Jesus for me? This is a reflection rather than a service. Just some thoughts for you to ponder, and then hopefully to have your own thoughts. And my starting point comes from the end of Mark's account of Palm Sunday, of Jesus having ridden into Jerusalem. And when all the shouting has died down, Jesus goes with his disciples into the temple. And he sees the money changers, and he sees all those who are haggling over the sacrificial animals. And that the following day will lead him to come back and throw them out. But here on the Sunday evening, Mark tells us, when he had looked around at everything, as it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. Bethany's a little village just outside Jerusalem, on the side of the Mount of Olives. And it's where Mary, Martha and Lazarus live. Now, Mark doesn't tell us that it was particularly to their house that Jesus went to spend the night. But I don't think it's stretching it too far to think that's what he did. Especially because we know from John's Gospel that a number of significant events in Holy Week happened in and around Bethany, and particularly in their house. And because we know that Jesus has a particular friendship with this family, what would be more natural that when the stress is building up, when it's a very pressurised time for him, he should go to their house to spend the night. I think it's easy to overlook the importance of the friendship that Jesus has with Martha and Mary and with Lazarus. When we think of those close to Jesus, we tend to think of the 12 apostles, or perhaps we widen it out a bit to the circle round them. The Gospels mention 72 at one point. And of course the 12 and the circle around them are important. We learn a huge amount from them about what it means to be a follower of Jesus. But let's not forget Mary and Martha and Lazarus, whose house is open to Jesus, and where it seems Jesus is welcome to bring others with him. Where, if we were to put it in terms of our own culture, the kettle is always on. For Jesus, it's a place of welcome, of hospitality and friendship. And so for a few moments, the invitation is to think about your friendship with Jesus. And I suggest that you push pause now on this video and go and put your kettle on and make yourself a cup of tea, or coffee of course, and then find yourself a comfy chair where you can sit and watch the rest. So welcome back to those who now have a cup of something in your hands. And the question is, can you picture yourself sitting where you're sitting now, hopefully comfortable and relaxed, and opening your home to Jesus, as Mary, Martha and Lazarus opened theirs? Or to put that in another way, do you see him as a friend? A really good friend is someone you can be yourself with, where you don't have to put up a facade. My nan lived in a 2 up and down terraced house, or at least that's what the house was like. Where she actually lived was in the back room. The front room was reserved for visitors, for guests, for the best. And it's worth pondering, if your house was like that, which room would you invite Jesus into? Would he be the visitor in the front room? Or would he be someone who is at home in your house, in the back room? Now, I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong in getting out the best china, which in my nan's house went with the front room. I'm all for a good celebration and for special occasions. But in my nan's house, if you never got beyond the front room, then you weren't really all that close. Is Jesus someone you trust? Someone you're willing to let see you as you are? Who you're willing to share hopes and worries with? To say, as we would put it, to say it as it is? Can you let him into the back room while you put the kettle on? And is he someone whose company you enjoy? I don't think the church has been particularly good at making Jesus sound attractive, but it's clear from the Gospels, and not least through the eyes of those who were shocked by it, that many, many people found Jesus good company. Can you relax and enjoy Jesus' company? But also turn it around. Can you envisage Jesus wanting you as a friend? Someone he trusts and wants to spend time with? I suspect that many people find that idea difficult. Maybe they're more like a character in a novel I once read, who understood, because she knew that's what Christians believed, that God loved her. But she found it very difficult to think that God might like her, rather than she was simply someone who God put up with. Can you envisage Jesus wanting you as a friend? And that's there in the Gospels. In John's Gospel, in the middle of the very long conversation that Jesus has with those around him in the upper room on the last night of his life, Jesus says to them, "I have called you friends." And he goes on to say what he means by that. His followers are not servants who are just expected to obey orders. They're friends who are trusted with knowing what Jesus is about and are drawn into being part of that. It's in the same passage of John that we get the lovely image of the vine. It's a very organic picture. Our life as Christians is intertwined with Jesus, and we're rooted in love and in trust in him. And if we place ourselves around the same table with those in the upper room, and that's something we do every Eucharist, And in a normal year, we do it very particularly on Maundy Thursday. If we place ourselves around the same table, then those words are spoken to us too. I have called you friends, and we are drawn into the same relationship. I have called you friends. What does it mean to be a friend of Jesus? In that same long passage from John, Jesus puts it very clearly. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. As his friends, we are to carry on the work that he came to do. And he's already given an example of what that means when he washes his disciples' feet in the upper room. We identify ourselves as Jesus' friends by the love and the care that we offer to others. Which means that friendship with Jesus, as well as being completely accepting of us, can also be very demanding. I said a few minutes ago that a really good friend is someone you can be yourself with. It's also true that a really good friend is someone who can call you out. To go back to Mary and Martha, there's a famous story about them, which Luke Gospel tells, of a visit that Jesus made to their house much earlier on in his ministry. And Martha gets very grumpy because Mary sits listening to Jesus, leaving her, Martha, to do all the work for their meal. I suspect when we read that story, many of us, perhaps especially women, have more than a sneaking sympathy with Martha. And Jesus says to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There's need of only one thing. That's sometimes presented as something of a put-down of Martha, or as setting up a completely false dichotomy between prayer and action. But that's not how I hear it. It sounds to me like a friend who knows Martha very well, well enough to understand why she's getting herself wound up, and helping her to untie the knot that she has got into. So I wonder, sitting with your cup of tea, what the conversation is you might have with Jesus. Relaxing into the presence of someone you trust, whose company you enjoy, and who you can be completely honest with, completely yourself. And just see where that takes you.